Well, we have another one for you, another good interview for you coming up here. Our next guest on the show has a lengthy list of career accomplishments, not the least of which is that he's been a Quality Digest Daily contributor for several years now.
A popular contributor.
Very, very popular with all of you out there. Mike Micklewright is a well-regarded author, speaker, and trainer of lean, quality management systems, and continuous improvement cultures. His teachings underscore the lasting wisdom found in the principles of the late, great W. Edwards Deming. This coming Thursday, March 6th, Mike will join our very own Dirk Dusharme right here in a webinar that will demonstrate how to sustain lean improvement and add spark to your quality management system all at the same time. Mike's latest article, A Holistic Approach to Lean, appeared in Monday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. So, without further ado, I am very happy now to welcome Mike Micklewright to the show. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Mike. Hi, Dirk.
Hey, guys.
How are you doing? Well, he's the guy, but you know, we're the guys. He's the guy. How are you, Mike? Good to see you today.
Thank you. Doing fine, thanks.
Good, good. All right, well, let's start off and chat a little bit about your most recent article, which really, as I mentioned, is about approaching lean holistically. And that means to me, and I know it means to you, a focus on principles first and tools second, but it seems that people just want to dive right in with the tools all the time. Why do you think that is?
Wow. Many reasons, I suppose. Number one, tools are easy. You know, it's quite easy to read about a tool like let's pick the easy one, the fun one, 5S, and it's got 5 steps, and it's easy to implement, it's easy to understand. Actually, I should say that it's easy to implement. It seems like it's easy to implement, but it's not implemented very well oftentimes. But the idea is that, yeah, it seems like the right thing to do. It seems like it's going to be easy. It doesn't challenge me. You know, it doesn't challenge a leader or a manager. It's not, you know, a tool is something easy to implement where it's not going to really affect who I am as a manager or a leader, and I don't have to ask difficult questions. It's also not going to affect the culture of the company, which is really difficult to change, but must be changed. So the hard things to do are at the higher levels, the principles, determining the principles, establishing the right culture and the business practices to support those principles, and then finally the easy thing to do is the implementation of the tools. And so that tends to be the focus. It also seems like you know, it's a quick win. If someone is trying to make an impression on the organization on what he or she can do and bring something onto the table, they can introduce something like 5S or TPM and say, hey, look how great this is. You know, we finished this up. We made some improvements, some vast improvements in 2 months. The problem is that it's just not going to sustain itself without the right culture to allow for sustainability and without the organization buying into the true principles of lean.
So, Mike, I think that what happens here a lot, it seems to me what happens here a lot, and you wrote about this in your article, is this idea of what is the number one killer of a process focus, and that's really departmental structures. Is that because, do you think, of like, I don't know, territorialism? Is it egos, politics, all that kind of stuff, or is there something deeper going on there?
Territorialism, yes. Egos, yes. Politics, yes. Something else, yes. Yes, to all of those. I think it's quite a bit of all of that. You know, I think we get comfortable with who we are and dealing with our own types of people, and you get comfortable with just dealing with a certain type of department or organization. So if you're a leader of a department, you know, you have, let's say you're a leader of an engineering department, you have that engineering mentality. You were an engineer. You know how they work. You're specialized. You're comfortable with them, and so it makes sense for you to be with them and sit with them and work with them solely. And then on the other hand, if you're the manager of a sales group, it's the same thing. You're comfortable with that department, and after a while too, you also may have built resentment amongst each other. Engineering through sales, through customer service, to manufacturing, whatever it might be, there might be those resentments that have built up. And so you do become very territorial with regard to your people and your processes. I mean, you know, you think about the reverse and the idea of a sales guy sitting next to an engineer, you know, it just doesn't make sense because they're two different types of people. You know, engineers like to talk about Star Trek and sales guys like to talk about golf. So it wouldn't make sense to put them near each other. So you get that feeling and that that sense of territorialism to ensure that you work together with your people and not with others. And also there might be competitive pressures ingrained in the company, such as trying to achieve certain objectives or goals within the department. And you do so no matter what, even to the detriment sometimes of the other departments. So we don't look at the entire system. When I teach root cause analysis, it's the exact same thing. You have to look at the whole process. When you get to the root cause of a problem, the problem may show up in shipping or at the customer, but the root cause may be back in purchasing or engineering or receiving or wherever. In order to get to the root causes of problems, you have to be able to cross over the boundaries, which are departments. So, if you truly think of, there's a reason why we call them value streams. They are streams, and they should flow. The impediments or the dams in the streams are the departments, and that's what breaks up the flow. And so any organization, if they're truly going to be truly be successful in their lean transformation, they need to break up those departments. And by the way, I'm not the only one that says this. There are others. You may have, some of you may have read a great book that came out somewhat recently, The Lean Turnaround by Art Byrne. And Art Byrne ran Danaher as well as Wire Mold for years. And in his book, he says the same things. I mean, he's very radical. He says you got to break up those departments. You got to break them up, and that's hard to do. But you have to break them up and then reorganize as value streams built around processes or product families.
Well, Mike, and I want to get back to the webinar that you and Dirk are going to be doing next week, next Thursday, because really what you're talking about here is, this idea that you have to break up these separations, you have to establish flow, and one of the things you talk about is this idea that lean systems and quality management systems really need to function together as one kind of broad-based business management system, and a lot of that really comes about through reducing redundancy. So what is that all about? What does that mean to you, and what should our viewers understand about that?
Well, I think one of the important things is to understand that, well, first of all, most people would admit that the hardest part about lean is sustaining. Again, going back to 5S, the fifth S is sustain. But really the last S of any lean implementation or lean tool is sustaining. And it's so difficult. And so with that, you have to say, okay, we have to look for alternatives to the maintaining that ability to sustain. And here we have an alternative right within the organization. In many organizations, many companies are certified to an ISO-based standard. And those ISO-based standards are about controlling of the operations and the processes within that operation. That's the intent, is to build this standard so that you have controlled conditions throughout the facility, throughout all of your processes. And so with that in mind, you would say, well, if we live by the spirit of that standard and truly controlled our processes and so forth, and then we merge that with the lean mindset, hey, we need to improve, we need to get rid of waste and so forth. And when you get rid of waste, you develop that new standard, okay? So now you have the standard and you put it into the quality management system, or it is just part of the quality management system, or as I call it, the business management system. And now you sustain that, and you sustain that effort. And so what I'm saying is there's a lot of control systems, really good control systems within a decent quality management system that we can use to sustain the gains that we realize through lean improvements. Now, a great example of merging is let's take the quality management system requirement of internal auditing. We all have to do internal audits, right? Okay. So I would advocate, and I've taught to many of my clients, that let's not just teach the normal way of auditing. Let's not just teach for auditing for compliance to the standard and procedures, but let's also teach them to search out and seek waste. So as they're observing a process, you not only look for compliance, but you also look for waste. Now you identify the waste, and if the waste is considered to be a large enough waste, then you might decide, well, let's initiate a preventive action. Now most organizations have a difficult time demonstrating proof that they do many preventive actions, and yet if they're a lean organization, they've got plenty of opportunities to show that, because so much of lean is about prevention. So anyway, this auditor sees waste, records that in a preventive action, and so maybe he saw excessive transportation, You can't record that as a corrective action because there's nothing in the standard that says thou shalt not excessively transport product. So you can't write it as a corrective action, but you can write it as a preventive action because that excessive transportation of product could result in lost product, damaged product, contaminated, missing, mixed, whatever. And so it could result potentially in a problem. So we write up a preventive action. Now that preventive action can start up a Kaizen event. You see how I'm mixing the words from lean and the quality management system? So that starts up a Kaizen event. The Kaizen event occurs, perhaps new standards, new processes, new leader standard work is developed, and that goes into the quality management or business management system to help sustain the efforts. So that's one way to mix and blend all of that together.
You know, Mike, I mean, what you're saying, I think you're preaching to the choir here. I think that we get it. I think that everyone out there should understand this too. If you don't, and if what Mike is telling you is something that you haven't heard before, well, I think we need to encourage you to tune in to the webinar we have coming up next week, because we're going to get a lot further into this, you and Dirk, next week, Mike, and talk about all these issues. It's a lot of exciting stuff here that people should know about. So we got to leave it off there. We're out of our time, but thanks again, Mike, for joining us today. We're going to see you again on Thursday, talk a lot more about this. Again, that's 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And Mike, we were going to see you next week then.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Talk to you soon.
Okay, Mike.